talking about today, girl?
Oh, I'm sure you're a bit nervous about talking about fear because it's not a fun thing most people want to go near because we want to run away from it, which
Let's
actually
tackle that
does
one.
cause us to run away a lot
Yes, it
from
sure does.
emotions, not just people.
Those are scary. Those
It sure
emotions
is.
are scary. So
It
I
sure.
understand that absolutely.
So, what do you think it was? It's a process that we all have to deal with, and it's built into our DNA almost, like as humans here. Why do you think it was even a purpose to begin with, to have something like fear?
I think it was more of a kind of, what is it now? Fight or flight, right? Response, right? It was meant to safeguard us from
Dangers, right?
danger, animals,
Actual
right?
danger, being eaten
Right? Or
alive.
like doing dumb shit like jumping off of a bridge just for fun and see if I can dive
Well,
in and
people still
not
do
die.
that. I don't know if fear keeps people from doing that one.
Yeah. But that's essentially what it was for, just to keep us from getting hurt and surviving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it makes sense, and I feel like it's tied very well to our ego, because our ego is basically, to me, it's our evil, our evil ego is not evil. Our
Not.
ego comes from that fear a
Mhm.
lot of the times, most, if not at all of it. I don't know. Actually, if you think about it, it might actually be from that fear of, fight or flight. So our ego is meant to protect us, right? So that's why but it's also very, like, even Dolores Cannon would say this, that the ego is very dumb. And the conscious mind is linked to the ego in that sense, that it just doesn't know. It just reacts more from what it knows in its background. Like, the only data it has to do anything is to know about past injuries and past things that hurt them, to make you afraid forward. So you can protect yourself from doing that again to yourself. So in a way, it's helpful, but
Yeah.
without addressing it more deeper, it can become a handicap, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. So it's like not only something that has happened to us, but also something that we've been told.
Mm.
Like, if, let's say, you live in a village and you've been told your whole life, don't go to that village next door, there's bad people there, as an example, you're going to have that fear from childhood up, and you're going to believe that there's bad people there.
Yeah.
Right? So the conscious mind does not know anything other than here.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
fear is also very much linked to not knowing. We'll say almost an ignorance. When we don't know something, fear elicits in us.
Yes.
And oftentimes, if it's a more subtle fear or something lighter, if we learn about it, oftentimes we can let go of that fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're afraid of, I don't know, snakes, and you only became afraid of it because of what everybody else told you, the conditioning of it, and just the idea of it. And then one day you get to be in a position where you take care of them or something, and you're like, oh wow, they're really not that bad. It's like people, like,
Mm-hmm.
all these movies and everything make them seem. So,
And it's interesting how fears can even come into this lifetime for previous lifetimes.
oh yeah, yeah.
I had a client, she was scared of snakes, like
Mm,
mortified. I mean, we live in Florida, like we have snakes,
mm-hmm.
right? So she was mortified. And as it turns out, she was, strangled by a python back in
Oftentimes,
the day.
just as a little hint to some people, if you have like some crazy morbid fear that you don't understand, like of heights, or of snakes or anything like
Water.
that, water, there's a high possibility, like a fear that doesn't make any sense to you. Like, in your life, you never had these problems that would make you fearful in this lifetime.
Mhm.
Just note that is a chance that you might have transitioned, most likely, from that in a prior lifetime. I've had clients, like, one, it's an interesting fear, very specific. She would be afraid to go on the highway, but she's only able to go from like one exit, and then if she knows she can get off at the next exit really quickly, she's fine, no problem. But if she continued and it turns out that came from a life, for her, she was a deer. She was hit in the freeway. So obviously that makes sense. It can like trigger you to address something that hasn't been healed, because there's no time to heal, because it was so traumatic in the moment. A lot of times that's why it comes over, I feel. I don't think it's just because it's, from what I understand, the soul itself doesn't carry these emotions exactly. They carry like hints of it, enough for you to deal with it in the current lifetime. Bring it to you in this lifetime, and then you start dealing with it, then you can let go of it. So I'll use myself as an example here, even though this was not the theme of the topic. But in one of my past iterations was really, really bad, I'll just say. And I transitioned in some not so good ways. And it had to do with, you hear stories nowadays of like sexual trafficking, women and children getting trafficked for sex. Well, I got to see that I was one of those victims. And which is interesting is that in this lifetime, I didn't have this fear in me, like outwardly. I was very fearless child, fearless adolescent. I've done some stupid things because I was so fearless, which other people would be like, you're a girl, you did that. That was really not too smart. Like, I'll have to admit, I hitchhiked in South Providence of Rhode Island, which is basically, gang central for that little city there. That's not the place you wanted to hitchhike for one, let alone, being a young girl. I did that. And I was not fearful before, during, or after. Luckily, nothing happened. That was not meant for anything to happen. But now that I'm older, I got to see that there's some processing to do, but I didn't need to express that in this lifetime. So the fear is interesting. Now the fear is more there than it was when I was young. But it's more of the copy of these feelings. It's not exactly the same fear that we got from, say, that past. At least that's what I'm getting with regards to fear. And this is a new revelation for myself, to be honest.
Well, so here's, it's kind of like, where is the fear coming from? So when you have fear, what do you do with your fear? Let me ask you that.
When I have fear, well, first thing I do with any strong emotion is I just tell myself to breathe slowly. And then I try to note that it's a strong emotion. If it's a strong emotion, there's something I need to do about it. And I've learned that it's about me. I have to deal with it. If it's fear, most likely fear will bring anxiety, right? Mm-hmm. Anxiety is a forward future thing. Nothing already happened in the moment. It's just something you're anxious about in the future that may or may not happen, based upon your data, we'll say, of your life and of what you have in your mindset. So yeah, there's still fears that pop up. In the past, I think I would do like everyone else. I'll just react and hide from it or run from it or something like that. But now, instead of running and hiding, I just like, okay, I just got to settle it down first and then really ask and get curious as to what this is. It might take time to figure it out, and I'll keep feeling that feeling until I get some sort of clarity. So that's kind of how I process it now. That's different than when I was younger. What do you do when you feel that way?
It really depends if it's anxiety based, right? Because I feel like anxiety is when we bring ourselves to that point where we take that little fear, right, and we start projecting of, as you mentioned, based on what we've experienced before, we're projecting it forward, that it's whatever it is, right? We can take any situation, right, and project and be like, oh my God, it's going to be so bad, right? Again, breathing definitely works, but if it's not too bad, I try to like sit with that emotion. Like I will analyze it. I'm like, okay, what is it exactly that I'm scared of? Is it that I'm scared of I mean relationships, let's say. I think for everyone it's a big one because we've all been hurt, right? And we look at the relationship as, I've been hurt, not realizing that maybe there's something that we need to work through or look at, right? But with relationships, like it's if something happens, let's say something happens, right? And already you're projecting to a point of, oh, this is not going to work out, right? Without even thinking of, maybe there's a way to talk to this person, right? Maybe I can voice my concerns, or I can actually say what I feel or how I feel, right? But it's that fear. So I start right away, like, what is the fear? Is the fear that I'm not going to be heard? Is the fear that I'm not going to be understood, right? I like break it down. And if it's just a fear of heights, that's easy. I'm like, and that choice I can make. I'm like, maybe I just don't want to be here, and it's okay. I don't want to, jump off a cliff. It's okay. I don't want to. I feel like that one is an easy one.
Well, it depends. I mean, depends on if there's like some underlying lesson there to learn that you want to learn from it. I mean, your soul's not necessarily going to let you off the hook unless it's something that's minor, like you say. If it's minor and they say, oh yeah, you don't really need that. If you're already at that space, you can get rid of it. Go ahead, let's tear that up. But I feel like you can, because then there'll be people who say to us, or you and me, but I have this chronic problem. Like it won't go away no matter how positive, affirming I try to like make it sound. At that point, I feel like there's more to it. There's more to dig in and try to figure out, because it's like you're trying to gain clarity, and that's what needs to be done that most people, I feel like, won't approach. Like we're both learned on some way or another that we need to address it and like really dig in and figure out. But you're saying, oh, is it because of emotions, because something I did, or because something that was triggered? Or but a lot of people don't go to that space to ask. They don't. They just feel the feeling, and then they're like, oh, suppress it, or throw it aside, or blame someone else for that feeling, and then we dismiss it, and then that's when it gets problematic long term. It might not be problematic in the moment. You probably might work, like talking about ways to deal with fear, and other emotions, actually, not just fear, but fear is one that really stands out. It makes your heart pump, and you're nervous, and
but I feel like in the moment, the only thing that you can't truly do is breathe, right? You need to, because it's all in the mind, right? It's all in the head.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, as you breathe, you will I don't know if people remember this, but when we were children and we were crying for no reason, what was the best thing to do, right? Or if you have children, what's the best thing to do? Show a child a different toy, right? So distraction. And that's essentially what we're doing, right? It's the same thing. By breathing, you're focusing on a breath, therefore bringing you in the now. Whereas you're not projecting, but you're in the now, right? And you can focus on the breath, therefore it's distracting to you.
It works to a degree, I admit, most of the time, but I feel like there are situations that can bring people, if they allow themselves, for whatever, it could be, it was within a split second, bring yourself into like that over the top moments where it's debilitating. That's when breathing might not even make a difference. I've been in those spaces, honestly. I've tried all the tools I know, like tapping and breathing, and your body's in such a fear state that it's reacting on its own, and it feels like no matter what you do, won't really get it. So in those moments, I still advise the breathing, even if it seems hardest, because you get so hyped up that you can't even slow your breath down, it feels like, and you get frustrated because you can't. So I would just say keep doing that, but then also let time move yourself. If it's a location, an environment that you're in, move yourself, even if it's hard as hell, move yourself out of that environment first, and then continue the breathing and just let time take over and tell yourself you're okay. And then, there's ways to like find the best way that works for you to calm your nervous system down, because otherwise it's not really getting it. But at the same time, you're not going to be, our body won't stay in any heightened state forever.
Yeah.
It will always, we ebb and flow. So in the moment, you're like, oh, this will never end. It might even take hours, but at the same time, you'll get out of it. Believe in it, have faith in it, and just try to bring it in closer. Just try to get a friend, get yourself, whatever you can do. Any moment you can trigger yourself to do something different, do it. That's my advice, because fear can be so debilitating. I can empathize. Yeah. But yeah, breathing is definitely useful, but I can totally understand when people are like in that super high, because that's when people start doing the drugs or addictions and things like that, because they want to numb the pain or not allow it to come up, and those fear is one that triggers that so much. And it could be so many different types of fear. It could be a fear about someone else specifically. It could be about an environment situation. It could be, fear of a failure, fear of success, fear of, being seen, fear of a million different things. And all of them can bring one person will be like, oh, well, yeah, that is a fear. And yeah, we'll just deal with it. Another person will be like, that's so, so hard. I don't know how anyone could. I don't know if I can. Even if that person can, I don't know if I can. But I want to put it out there that yes, you can and you will, because the reason why it's so strong is for you to learn how to balance your way out of it. And you're strong enough to do so because you have that experience in your hand. So that's my belief system anyway. I really truly believe that we get what we can handle on some level. So
let's talk about fear. And you mentioned in fear of success.
Yeah.
Or fear of failure. Right? Yeah. It's like the opposite,
opposing.
The opposite side. Yeah.
But it could happen at the same person in the same, like almost moment too, right? It could be, yeah. Do you have that fear? Either.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, probably both at different times in my life. Right, but that's why I constantly analyze my feelings, right? Well, fear especially. Is it am I scared because fear of being seen? That's another one. Mm-hmm. But I feel like all three of them come from the upbringing. So fear of failure, it comes from trying to be perfectionist. Mm-hmm. Right, not allowing yourself to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that our parents or whoever brought us up are bad people. No, they did their best, but that is essentially what we came here to kind of overcome. Mm-hmm. Right, so we come as clear, right? We come as clear channels, because when we're children, we're kind of like imagine an empty, like a clear piece of paper, right? There's nothing there. We're very close to the source. Right, but we're still here to learn lessons. So that childhood is we are experiencing certain things that will gives us certain beliefs. And if in your family it was extremely important to get all A's, right, and that's how you were viewed, you're only good when you're getting A's, right? That you grow up to be a failure, a fear of failure. And that's why it's so interesting. And I don't know if you've seen this. I've seen this going around where people. Well, I'll give you this example. I was on the road, and there was a gentleman in a fancy car. I don't know, expensive car, and his license plate said "C student." Because people who didn't really necessarily care for it wasn't important, right? What they get in school wasn't important. right? So he was a C student, right? So those are the people who are not scared to kind of go for it when they're older and make bold moves. And sometimes that's what we need to make a bold move, right? So there's no fear of failure, right? Nor is there a fear of success either, right? But why are people fearing success?
Because it's anything that changes you out of a norm, whether it's good or bad, is hard. So if you are successful, now you have to take the responsibility of staying successful. Now, you get to a point, you get the money or whatever you define as success for yourself, notoriety, I don't know what it would be, aiming to get your picket fence in White House. If you get it, you have this fear of losing it, and fear of, oh, am I worthy enough to have this?
That's what it is. It's that worthy enough. Do I feel like I'm worthy enough of something good for myself? Right? And again, I feel like the worthiness the same way comes from childhood, right? Because we learn these things about ourselves. And it's funny how we can pick a topic, right? We picked fear, but then everything, like if you analyze it, it all comes back to either one comes back to the love of the self.
Yes, love of the self. Yeah. Because once you love yourself well, you won't care about these things because you'll be able to handle what comes your way.
Yeah.
Even if there's natural fears, I mean, fear is not a bad thing. I think it's actually still useful in our day and age. I feel like, we if we didn't have fear, we would be burning our hands all the time. We'll be like putting ourselves in bad situations without knowing, and keep doing it. But I feel that we're also grown up enough as a society to be aware of this, and aware that these are all these emotions, like fear, though intense it is, it actually can propel us in our expansion and growth, and how to make us better as an overall thing. So I don't want to say we get rid of all our fears just because we just tell ourselves, that's the perfectionist side of us. Oh, we want to be great people, so let's just get rid of all these fears. It's like, yeah, but do you really understand why that was there to begin with? And it's the clarity, the personal understanding, and what you're going to be with sitting in on all these things, all these concepts. And yeah, how do you tackle fear? How do you guys tackle fear?
Yeah.
Do you guys tackle fear?
Let us know what you do. Maybe you have different tools to do it. And
yeah, I'd love to hear more. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, it's fun. It's interesting you mentioned before that when you were younger, you were fearless.
It's nice to be naive sometimes. It's like the ignorance is bliss, that concept, but it doesn't mean it's better. Because you need to know how the world works.
Is it being naive, or was it that you heard or listened to your intuition more? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? In those moments, I think it might have been more the intuition of myself, but at the same time, like, I look back at that, even though I jest about it being really, really noob and very, I could have put myself in a really bad state in that moment. And even, like I said, before, during, and after, I didn't feel I did bad. I felt like everything was fine. And yeah, I noticed that it could have went a very bad way too. But I think it was, like you say, I knew for myself I was safe. Yeah, so I would align with you more with the intuition aspect of it. I felt completely in my, just reflecting, especially after all these years, I still feel like I was protected. Like it wasn't meant for me somehow. Even though I would like baffle my own mind about it, but that's silly. You shouldn't still never have gotten to that. Why did I not have any red flags for myself to, be more protective? And then I realized that I just knew it. I just knew that's not part of my alignment, at least this time. I've already been there. I've done that. I've been in fact, looking at that particular past life I'm thinking of, I was very naive then as well, but that was a very, very specific situation of how I got captured into that. And there was a lot of distortions that I learned from it. But I realized that as on a soul level, and also getting to remember on my soul level that we have an innate courage, an innate ability to move past all of these things, because which will actually lead to our next talk, how we create our reality and what we do with it and how we perceive it. And we, like you mentioned, and we mentioned a bunch of times already, we come here for these experiences to learn from. And even though you probably want to say, well, I never would wish any of these negative things to happen, some of these kind of was along the docket of experiences we came here to allow. Not that we think that we should or shouldn't experience them. It's not about the good and moral bad values for everything that happens, but how do we elicit fear? How do we elicit happiness? How do we elicit all these different emotions is what we're here for, to see how we can experience through them. Like, how can we utilize these, this separation of knowledge of how, in a way, we're all, even the beggar on the street is powerful in its expression. To be here, you're super courageous to be here, and we'll hear that from many other people who understand this sort of soul level talk here. We come here knowing it's tough, but we still come, not because we're masochistic, but because we know there's value in understanding from a perspective of going through it in a way, right?
Well, we mostly look at life from the conscious perspective, and the conscious is always like, why is it happening to me? Why is this being done to me?
Yes.
More from a position of a victim.
Right.
And
that's part of it too. That's part of it too.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get ourselves out of that position of victimhood as well? Because after a while,
power. I believe, like, once we get out of it, even once we get out of fear, right? That's also victimhood. I feel like in some instances. Yeah. And it's, so how do we get ourselves out of it? And that's why we're here. We're here to experience it and learn how to rise above or get ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
And guess what? If we don't learn it this lifetime, we're going to have to repeat it next lifetime. It's the same
or many,
lesson.
many times this lifetime, which to us and our little lovely existence, it seems forever, but it actually isn't.
It really,
just like how to deal with the emotion of fear, in the moment, just breathe and take your time. Time will, our version of time, the flow will happen, and it's not always going to be heightened. It's not always going to be bad in our perception. So, yeah.
It's patience as well, right? It's just being patient. We're so used to everything being quick.
Yep. Yep. Instant gratification, instant satisfaction, instant, get me out of here, help me, guides. Well, they're always there. Your guides are always there. You can always ask for their help and support, but they're not going to pull you out of the water directly necessarily, because they could, but they choose not to, because then it'll be like, why did I even do that in the first place? There's no point in experiencing. Okay. Experience.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an experience. So we can always, they always say, and when I say they, the guides, and we have a huge team behind us. And again, these are only our views. If you think differently, it is okay. We don't need we don't need hate comments, but it's just, you're free to believe what you believe. We believe this, you can believe something else, but we have a huge team behind us, right? And again, however we think the help should come is not necessarily what we really need in order to learn a lesson. right? And two, what they are willing or can provide.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Because if it was one of those, uh, perfect worlds, like the conscious mind things, and it will be like a genie in a bottle. I want riches. I want whoever wants what, right? A beautiful wife, a hot husband, whatever it is, right? Who will love me and do everything I tell them to do. No, that's not what they're for, and that's not what they're going to do. Right? But it's a process of learning, coming back to the self. I feel like it's all about coming back to the self, learning where you are, learning to listen to yourself, inner self, right? Your higher self. And a lot of the times I'm like, okay, so I have fear of this. Is it my fear, like the conscious mind fear, or is it something that I'm being told to stop doing and look at it? And so, like, I analyze. Maybe it's my mind, and probably sometimes it's not the best. But analysis works for me. I can also say, okay, I feel fear, but I'm safe at the moment, right? I'm in a safe place. If I'm not in a safe place, I will get myself to a safe place, and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, I hope this was helpful for you, because fear is a big one. And I've heard different things. I've heard that if you're scared of something, do it anyways. So the more we are aligned with our path, the more the conscious mind will be scared. Like, I don't know about you, when I was starting my even training for QHHT, which is quantum healing hypnosis technique, I had so much fear that I needed to overcome. Just the beliefs that I've had from how I was brought up, right? And just actually stepping on my path, right? We're not talking about, I mean, I probably could have gotten myself to anxiety here, and I probably did, but I wasn't in danger, right? So a lot of the times it depends. Look at the situation. And it could be that your conscious mind is just scared of change. Anything it does not know or is not familiar with, and remember, it only knows the past of this lifetime, nothing else. It will also say, danger, danger, this is scary because this is something new.
Yep. Yep. And it can lead to that fear of success too, because if you're going along alignment, again, will I stay there? Am I capable of this? And kind of thing. And what if I fail? What if, then what does that mean for me? What does that all mean? Again, it's building up your own value and the courage to go. Yeah, I totally agree. Anytime there's fear there's a hint that there's something there for you. And doing it afraid, often you will build so much understanding of yourself. I know a friend, and me included, I've gotten to the point where I will face my fears head on and keep going, and then the next one will come, and then the next one comes. Like, we're like, come on, fear, come on, show me, show me something. And after a while, the hit of the fear isn't as strong, because you realize there's actually, now you're getting yourself comfortable with that feeling. So it's less fearful than just the feeling of it that you get expressed. So I think that also happens too. Like, you get used to tackling what this message is for you, for yourself. Like, how can I, with fear, it's often a feeling of lack in some way, that we can't do something, we can't we can't we're not good enough in some level to be able to tackle that fear. Because when it comes to survival, think about it. You're faced with a wild animal like a bear or a tiger. They're physically capable of messing you up. So
Yeah.
you're inadequate because your body's just not capable to fight that off very, very readily. So that very much equates to it. And then when we come into a modern day life, it's like that, but in a more subtle way that creates the cortisol and everything, fight or flight. But it's internally saying, oh, well, I'm not sure I'm good enough to handle this in some way. So you can either fight that or be like, oh yeah, well, I know I'm not a tiger, but I am a great climber. or I am a great hider. I can, do different things to survive. And after a while, you do it enough, you know what to do, and you know the nature of it all. But
Also notice how your conscious mind will create different things out of fear. Like, let's say you need to do something, or you're thinking about a new job, right? You have that inside feeling that I don't like my job here. I need a new job. And then your conscious mind will be like, but you get paid very well here. And what if there's no jobs out there, right? And your conscious mind is now talking you out of, because that's also part of fear, right? The fear is of the unknown, right? So that's also, so pay attention to your thoughts. That's the main thing, right? Not necessarily analyze them like I do, don't have to, but it's kind of like paying attention to the thought process that's happening. Or when you get into new relationships, sometimes people are scared of relationships, and it's right away, it's not going to work out, he's got blonde hair, like right, whatever it is that your mind is telling you, be like, hold on, is this valid, legit? Like, am I not allowing myself to go with new experiences? Or is it something that I truly feel inside is not going to work out? Just kind of be mindful of your own emotions and feelings. That's all I'm going to stop with.
yeah,
But yeah, but the next, and don't forget, I know I'm jumping from one to another. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And leave us a comment. What is your biggest fear right now? Maybe someone in the comments can help you, or we can also at some point even collect all of them and analyze, because that's my favorite thing to do.
yep, the patterns make a difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what's our next topic, girl?
Our next topic is gonna be fun, actually. It's about how we create our reality.
I love how everything is really intertwined. Like, we're still going to
Yeah,
talk
it's
about
like every
similar
single
things.
time I feel like I'm like hitting back on other topics we talked about, and likewise, it's like the biggest one I would say so far is the internal work. Like, we really got to start from in there and
Yes.
gain clarity, heal it, and yeah, we'll be so much better and stronger in the long run.
Yeah. Oh, but it's an awesome topic. I can't wait. But have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.